Welcome back to Newsmax Now. Joining us right now, political strategist Dick Morris, author of the new book, Power Grab, Obama's Dangerous Plan for a One-Party Nation. Dick, great to talk to you. I wanted to ask you about Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard. He will be released in November. John Kerry said on Tuesday it had nothing to do with the Iranian deal. It was not an appeasement to the Israelis who have criticized the Obama administration on this deal. Should we take Kerry as word?
Well, it's a good idea when you're a public official not to say something the average 8-year-old knows is not true. And the average 8-year-old would know that this is related to Obama trying to pacify Israel and Jewish supporters over the Iran deal. He's taking real flack, and it's making a real difference. The numbers are moving against this deal, and I think he's trying to put some stuff on the other side of the ledger. Look, the Israelis have been looking for Pollard's release for 20 years now, and the intelligence community has made it a very high priority not to do it. So you have to believe that this is just political.
Do you think that the Obama administration, since you mentioned that about the intelligence community making this a high priority, do you think he has also alienated even further members of the intelligence community by making this deal?
Well, he may have, and I think this ties in with how they handle Hillary Clinton's breach of the security in connection with her email. The national security types are an alien force in any administration. They're like from another planet. They descend on the White House and with the text they want in stone, and they give you the tablet and you type it over. And but they're very particular about violations of secrecy. And just as they militated the prosecution of Sandy Berger, the former head of the NSA, of Deutsch, the former head of the CIA, and of Petraeus, our commander in the Middle East, all of whom were prosecuted under facts very similar to Hillary's. I think they're not going to sit well if she's let off.
All right, well, that's an interesting point. We talked about David Petraeus last week on the program, or on Monday, and he had some information locked in his drawer. It seems to the average person, at least to me, that keeping an entire server of potentially classified information would be worse than what Petraeus has done, but we'll leave that up to lawmakers to figure out. Let's also talk a little bit more about the Iranian nuclear deal. We have a new poll that shows the majority of Americans, according to this poll anyway, are against that deal. This is from CNN and ORC. They say more than half of Americans, 52%, want lawmakers to reject the deal. Meanwhile, only 44% want Congress to approve it.
There's another poll out by Pew before this that has it 48 reject, 38 approve it. In this case, how you word the question is crucial.
Right.
Because some of these polls, like Washington Post, ABC, shows 55% want approval. And what they do is they say, President Obama has just signed a deal with Iran, stopping Iran from developing nuclear weapons in return for an easing of sanctions. If Iran doesn't comply with the deal, the sanctions could snap back in place, and Iran has to accept a vigorous program of inspections to verify their compliance. Do you support or oppose this deal?
It's a lot of information in one question.
Well, no, but you can't possibly oppose it, given that info. On the other hand, if you just ask people, do you support or oppose the deal with Iran, you're going to have a 15 to 20-point margin against it. And it's getting worse. There hasn't been a lot of attention to this, but I have seen no end of ads by Committee for Nuclear-Free Iran, probably paid in part by the Israeli lobby, all over the place. My wife and I love to watch Jeopardy at night, and we sit there, and every single day for the last 10 days, there's been the same ad, and I think it's moving public opinion.
Meanwhile, John Kerry on the Hill on Tuesday testifying before a House committee. Let's take a listen to what Secretary of State John Kerry had to say.
That Iran will go back to enriching. We will not have inspection. We will not have insight. And they will say, oh, my God, now they're going for a bomb. Now we have a reason to have to get one.
What do you think about John Kerry's assessment there? If we don't do anything, they're going to develop a nuclear weapon anyway.
Well, we know that if we don't do anything, that the sanctions are crippling. We know that those sanctions are so strong that they forced Iran to negotiate and to agree to a freeze. And if you're going to lift the sanctions in return for the pittance that they're giving Obama, that's one thing. But if you hold those sanctions and you say, unless I get a real deal out of you, there's an interesting concept here. Do you realize we are giving Iran more money for one country than the Marshall Plan was for all of rebuilding Europe? We are literally giving them $150 billion over a period of 10 years.
That's a lot of money.
That's more than we give Israel or Egypt. Now, they say it's their money. Well, it was the Shah's money. It was frozen after the hostage crisis.
Right.
And we are unfreezing it and letting them have it.
Well, that's a real concern. I do
So
want to
they've
ask
gone
you
from suspending enrichment to enrichment.
enrichment in a very literal sense. Now, I also want to ask you about Chuck Schumer. There needs to be 13 Democrats to buck the president, to override a presidential veto, which he's promised. Chuck Schumer staying quiet. Where does he come down on this deal? When do you think we'll hear from him?
Well, I think it's all phony. There is a chance that the public opinion really affects stuff and upsets the apple cart. But as things now stand, it's phony. There's already a deal, in effect, that there will be 13 Democrats voting against the deal, and they're auctioning off the places.
All right. Well, Dick, we'll have to continue the conversation.
It won't work.
Yeah.
It'll keep the deal.
Well, more to come on the Iranian deal. Stay tuned. Newsmax Now will continue after this.